We'll get started with Steve and Sherri Letchford. Before we start, though, we do need to make our announcements about Service Day coming up in less than 2 weeks, 13 days. And on the website, you can sign up to actually work at Service Day, which is great. You can also sign up to give to the care packages, and that's very, very important. Your tax-deductible gift can be given. This will go to give supplies or to buy supplies and pack these boxes that can be used at Family Promise, many other places, but we need you to give. And don't forget tax deductible. And we need those gifts to come in pretty soon, so we'll have time to buy the items and for those items to be shipped here. So keep that in mind, and you can go to the Trinity website, trinitypca.org, to do all of that as well. Today we have special missionaries with us, Steve and Sherri Letchford. Steve and Sherri left the U.S. back in 1998 to serve in remote Zambia, very remote Zambia, and in 2006 they relocated to Kenya. I'm going to let them do most of the talking. I just wanted to get those couple of things out there for them to come today, very special for us. And we're going to, I think, play a video first, and then y'all will come up and talk.
The church to build assistance. There was a child who came here. He was so sick, very anemic. Yeah, so just this child really needed something, right now. But now I didn't have it. I'm a nurse and came to Dima village to serve the community. My joy is just seeing them going home happy after the services they've received from the clinic. Yeah. When we came here, there was a need from the local community, and they requested the church to build a health facility because back then there were no health facility, so they had to walk long distances to seek health assistance. There was a child who came here. He was so sick, very anemic. Yeah, so just this child really needed something, right now. But now I didn't have it. They don't have transport. I don't have money at the clinic. So they didn't go anywhere that night. In the morning, I come to work, I'm told the child has passed on. So I'm like, oh God. Yeah, so we heard the records that Antimatter was out of stock. I believe that life would have been saved. That life would have been saved. Way back, we used to do our record keeping manually. I was a nurse, I was the administrator, I was the cashier, I was everything. But when Steve came and introduced the SIM program, we've had a laptop, we've had internet for the first time ever. He even trained us how to enter clients' data. I was like, this actually makes work easier. How come we didn't have this from the word go? The Hassan, who was just at home waiting, not able to walk, and lost hope because he was so sick. He had jiggers all over his feet. He's also HIV positive, and he also has TB.
Kuendelea namna hiyo kupoza ugonjwa alionao, mgonjwa na mguu. Nashukuru Mungu kabisa, daktari namtamani kama leo, lakini bibi sikuizi too much. Sijiwezi, ilikuwa simami sana. Sasa sijambo ndio wanakuja afuate nini? Lakini naona hizo dawa zinatosha, nimebaki na hizo. Watoto wao wa siku hizi wale leo na kesho, nitakuja kesho, kumbe nakuja kesho kutu. Watoto tefuko ufanya kazi, utafika. Hawaji kabisa. Hawaji. My friends hawaji. Anakuja mmoja kwa mwaka.
I feel like every clinic in the whole country needs this new SIM program because I'm able to respond to need in proper care of my patients. They're given a new chance to actually keep our records in check. Before, it was so overwhelming, so tiresome because I was doing a lot as one person. I'm now able to give tender loving care to my patients. The basic drugs you need are always in stock. And we're able to save more lives. So I actually offer now the best care to all my patients. It's nice.
Can you hear me now? Okay, super. So you guys have been with us for almost 2.5 decades. We are really getting old, Steve and I. But you guys always make us feel welcome and prayed for and supported in our ministry. And so if we're new to you, we are Steve and Sherri Letchford. We serve with SIM International. It is an international, interdenominational, evangelical organization whose vision is to make disciples in communities where Christ is least known. Steve is a physician, and I am a physical therapist, and we are passionate about training, mentoring, and discipling young African healthcare professionals. The communities that we are focused on are in extreme poverty and often the most vulnerable in terms of social, economic, spiritual, and emotional needs. When the world began to shut down with COVID in the beginning of 2020, I had just attended my first SIM International Board of Governors meeting as a member at large. And now for 2 years, these meetings have been on Zoom, which is a huge disappointment for someone who loves to be with people. So next week, I am flying back to Kenya for my first in-person Board of Governors meeting in 2 years, and I'm super excited and looking forward to face-to-face discussions. It's been a huge privilege to serve SIM in this way and to be able to discuss leadership issues at that kind of 40,000-foot view. But in my day-to-day ministry, I have been, for the last many years, teaching and discipling young physical therapists within Kajabi Hospital. But when the pandemic started, I stepped out of hospital work. Mostly, my team was very well staffed. There were 17 therapists at the time, and we have right now and had a great leader who had been one of my students at a local university in a PT program that I taught in, and so I had recruited him from there, and he's still there and doing a great job. But Steve has multiple sclerosis, for those of you who don't know us well, and I wanted to do anything I could do to limit his exposure. So that's also why I stepped out of the hospital at that point, because that was right in the beginning, and as you know, there were no vaccines or anything right in the beginning of that, and we didn't know very much about COVID. That year, instead of working in the hospital, I served as the regional director for SIM in East and Central Africa. And although all of my meetings were on Zoom instead of traveling in the region, I learned a lot about ministry in our region, and I led a task force to open ministry in a closed Muslim country. And next week, the first small group of SIMers, one Ethiopian and 2 Germans, are taking the next steps to explore the logistics on the ground of opening up and bringing a team to this area inside this high-risk country. So I'm excited and I'm thankful for these friends who are willing to risk quite a bit in their safety and well-being and even their lives to develop relationships so that Christ might be known in this region. In Kenya, I'm not planning to return after home assignment to work in the hospital, but instead I'll transition to community physical therapy and trauma healing in a village that's not far from where we live in Kajabi. The small health clinic in this village of Eburu uses the Bonda Health software tools that are developed by Steve's team.
Sherri promised me she'll tell you more about what she's going to do here at the end. But a few years ago, I was on call at Kajabi, which, for those who've been there know, Bill and Carol and others, it's one of Africa's largest mission hospitals. And it was 4 in the morning. It was in the emergency room, and there was a little baby girl, and this is not her, because she was only 7 days old. Her name was Mumbi, that was laying on the table. Mumbi had obviously just been born the week before, and their family lived only 45 minutes from our hospital. Not long after Mumbi was born, she started vomiting. Mumbi's mom is poor. You would call her desperately poor if you saw the situation she's in. She essentially has no money. So when her baby started vomiting, she waited and hoped that that vomiting would stop by itself. It didn't. So on day 3, Mumbi's getting sicker. Her mom takes her to the little clinic that's near her house there to see the nurse. There is no doctor there. There essentially never is a doctor in the poorest villages and slums. But these little clinics, and that one was doing the best that it could. And so the nurse that day gave Mumbi's mom a pink antibiotic. It's what she knew how to do. It's what she had. Unfortunately, it was nowhere close to what Mumbi needed. It was the wrong diagnosis, and the wrong treatment. And the clock, by this point, was already ticking. And so on day 7, when something is obviously terribly wrong with this little girl, her mom, in desperation, at 4 in the morning, shows up at Kajabi 2 hours later, despite really a great resuscitation effort, this little baby dies right as the sun is coming up. And I noticed that her mom has been standing there the whole time in the emergency room while we've been resuscitating, and her mom just starts sobbing. And I asked myself then what I always ask myself, like, what if that was my kid? And today I ask myself, what if that was one of my granddaughters? What if, for me, taking my one kid to the hospital to get care meant that I wouldn't have money to feed my 4 other kids or eat myself? Sherri and I are blessed to have access to very simple things like doctors, cars, really whatever we need to get good health care. But when I look at Mumbi's mom, I think, what would I do, what would I have done if I was her? And honestly, we've been in Africa a long time now. I still don't know how I would do it. The issue is that there are not thousands of kids like Mumbi, there's millions of them. And that's just in East Africa alone before you go out. Africa has somewhere like 25% of the world's disease burden and 1% of the world's wealth. So you have 1% of the world's wealth being used to really handle 25% of the world's disease burden. And what that means is if your kid has part of that disease burden, that you and your kid are in trouble. Because it means, just like in Mumbi's case, the small clinic where you're going doesn't have a doctor. Honestly, that small clinic where you're going is struggling because they don't have Mike either. They don't have an accountant. They are struggling just to keep their doors open. It means, unfortunately, you don't have money, like Mumbi's mom, to go somewhere that could take better care of you. It means that if you're the parent, or in many cases the grandparents, you've got to make these awful decisions about, do you take care of one kid or feed the other 4 kids? For mission hospitals like Kajabi, it means that way too often in the middle of the night, we get people showing up from everywhere when it's just too late. And as believers, it's clear to you, it's clear to us, that no one should have to walk through this journey of being poor and sick at the same time, especially when the people of Jesus are somewhere nearby. Now, SIM, Sherri said we've been with SIM all these years. SIM, we do 3 things. We respond to need, we proclaim the gospel, and we equip the church. And so a few years ago, several of us inside SIM and one guy in AIM, we sat down and we thought through this idea that has now become Bonda Health, to do all 3 of those same things. And so Bonda, as you've seen, we developed technology that empowers the clinics in the slums and villages. Where did Mumbi's mom go first? That's where we want to be. So we go and empower those places and help them do what they do better. And then we also build gospel-shaped ministry relationships in those communities to begin to be a part of helping these communities better understand what the gospel means. These clinics, as you can imagine, are right where their patients need them. They are very close to their patient's home, but the clinics are honestly as poor as the patients are. So they're very under-resourced. Their margins are unbelievably thin. All these clinics aren't just a clinic, they're a business. And so in addition to taking care of their patients, they got to take care of their resources, their money, their stocks, their medicines, their supplies, things like that. And so Bonda, this Bonda ministry, we help them on that side 2 ways. One is we help them with a clinical question, which is how do I keep my patients healthy? But the other thing we do is with a business question, which is how do I keep my business healthy? And so we have built and we continue to evolve an online software as a service if you're in the tech world, and it's called Bonda Go. And we can put a new clinic up in 10 minutes online with it. And it's clinic management software designed for these guys, by these guys, that helps them run the business and helps them make this switch that can be very high impact from scraps of paper to 21st century technology. And with it, they can see their medicine inventory, they can see their last visit note, they can see their treatment plans, how much drugs they have, how much cash they did. And it gives them more time, more resources, more information to take care of their patients with. A few times people have told me they didn't realize that computer programming was missionary work, and I said, yeah, me neither. I said, who knew, right, that it was something. But right now, the Bonda Ministry, we are in 65 clinics. I'm not sure what my next picture was. No, we'll get there in a minute. We are in 65. Actually, Thursday we went to 66 clinics. We've helped these guys take care of about 310,000 visits so far. But I want to just tell you a story of just two of the two clinics that help paint a little picture. What does technology and relationships look like on the ground as we do it in our Bonda ministry? The first two clinics actually are in this town called Garissa, which is about 5 hours from Kijabi. Al-Shabaab went in there and killed 137 or something college kids a few years ago who identified as Christian. And it's predominantly Muslim part of the country. And SIM, AIM, Kijabi Hospital has had a little team up there using community health and the Kijabi name to try to get into this community and get the gospel into these, get the gospel in there. And it's been difficult, as it typically is. One of the ladies on the team is a South African business executive woman named Louise. And Louise was really struggling, coming from her background, what was her value add in that community, because what she wanted to do was get in and work with Muslim businesswomen, and she wanted relationships with these women. Somebody on the team told her about what Bonda did, what we were good at, what we were passionate about, and she got excited. And essentially a couple years ago, Louise became Bonda's unofficial representative up in Garissa. And what that gives her is the sort of informal business card to walk into clinics, and so she works with two of them, with Muslim businesswomen and help them as the consultant running their clinic. What it really helps her do also is begin to build relationships, the relationships she craves with these women. And David on our team was just on a phone call with her this week, and she, every time you talk to her, she is so excited about the window that she has now to get in, not just help them do what they do, but begin to walk as a Christian with them in their Muslim background and begin to understand a little bit of what this Christ's atoning sacrifice means for us and how it brings God back into a space that they just are not able to comprehend. So that in Garissa, Louise has been, we've been working with partners up there. The other one is Nairobi Baptist Church, which was in the video. Nairobi Baptist Church is a larger church in Nairobi, and they have targeted other Muslim communities. One is down on the coast where Janet is, and then one is in Kibera, which is one of the larger slums in Nairobi. And 2 years ago, someone connected us, and they were running these two medical ministries in these two places, and they were struggling with what everyone struggles with, is just keeping these crazy things afloat. Like, how do you keep the cash flow going, the reporting going? How do you know what medicines you need to order for these things? And so we went into the church headquarters and saw their guys, and when he was new at that point, our frontline guy just showed them what we could do, their mouths dropped, and they were so excited. So right away they introduced us to both their clinics in the slum and then down on the coast. And this couple, Janet, that is in there, Janet's and her husband, Godwell, let's just see, yeah, we got him. That's not me, it looks like me, but that's my son. But Janet and Godwell are a gorgeous couple. And 4 or 5 years ago, when they realized that God was calling them from their good jobs in the city down to this mission post, basically, of the church on the coast, they had a lot of questions for God at that point. Janet, as you see now, runs that clinic down there and is still there. She is the main option that people have that are there to go to. Her husband was a semi-professional soccer player, and so he runs a sports ministry into 20 of the local little villages that are around there. And it was very interesting. The first time we met him, it may have been this time, Thomas, our son, was with us. And as we drove out at the end of the day back out to the main road from where they were, their questions weren't for Sherri and me. Their questions were all for Thomas. And they all revolved around this thing of, what was it like to be a missionary kid? And I was sitting there going, like, no one's ever asked my kid out here what it's like to be a missionary kid. What are these people? What are they doing? And then it became very clear. Janet and Godwell, no, they see themselves as missionaries, and they had an 18-month-old daughter, and they were very much wondering, what's it going to be like for our kid growing up as a missionary kid? And so awesome, great people coming alongside the church and the ministry that they're doing. There are quite a number of other Christian ministries that we work with in different spaces, but we also target clinics who may or may not be believers. And our goal is the same. It's to help them do what they do, taking care of the vulnerable patients and do it better, and then also to begin to build relationships with them and with our relationship partners that are there. And the opportunities to do this, I mean, we're at 66 clinics now and would like to be at a lot more. The opportunities are far in excess of the resources we have. So we appreciate your prayer as we try to be as smart as we can each day. But there is an African proverb that, to me, operationalizes what Jesus talks about when he talks about the mustard seed and a little bit of yeast that the kingdom is like. And the proverb is this. It says, the best time to plant a seed that turns into a tree is 20 years ago. Second best time is now. And so we're in the now, and so we keep pressing on, doing things that we wish, honestly, we had done 20 years ago, but they weren't possible, planting one seed at a time. And we do appreciate your prayers as these next 2 years we look to double the size of our team and the speed that we can plant seeds. So.
If we have time at the end, I want someone to ask us for a little more of Janet and Godwell's story. They really have an incredible testimony. Marion Jenga is a nurse who ran the operating room. Maybe even Bill and Carol knew Mary and Jenga. But she ran the operating room at Kajabi Hospital for years and years and years. And she's married to Steve, a pastor who has a huge heart for reaching the lost. And my Steve worked with Mary several years back when he was tasked with cleaning out a warehouse full of donated hospital equipment. And this warehouse is like the size of a small airplane hangar, and it was stuffed full of dusty donated equipment just because no one had time to sort it. And so Steve would drag Mary into the warehouse about every week for months and months until after a lot of hard work and sweat, they had either assigned each piece to a new home in the hospital, or they had given it to another hospital, or they had thrown it away. So they completely cleaned out this huge airplane hangar together. But Mary and her husband Steve started an outreach probably about 20 years ago in a small village called Iburu. There was nothing there but this little village on top of a volcano. And she said when they first began to go out there on Sundays that the healthcare needs were so great that she didn't want to tell them that she was a nurse. And so she began by pulling rotten teeth under a tree after Steve preached on the weekends. And then eventually they built a school, which is called Camp Brethren. And that now runs from kindergarten through grade 12. And their students have some of the highest marks in the country on their standardized exams. Mary is a fiery ball of energy. She has dyed red hair, and Steve is a giant, gentle giant. He's very quiet, 5'6". 6'6", sorry, 6'6". I'm 5'6". He's 6'6". And the PT needs in this community are huge. So when we return from home assignment, this is the community that I am planning to serve in, with mostly home visits, but also at the school. They have about 20 or 25 kids with cerebral palsy, spina bifida, and other developmental disabilities. And so before I left in December, we were going on a holiday with our kids, but I met with the two of their teachers just to give them some ideas on how to better handle these children and meet their physical needs in the classroom. But I'm also in the process of finishing my training in being able to train others in competent trauma care for children. And Mary has said she would love for all of the teachers to have this training, because it's not just the kids with physical and mental disabilities who have undergone trauma, but so many of the other kids at the school have also experienced trauma in their short lives. We sponsor 3 girls at Camp Brethren and another one in a school about 45 minutes away. And our girls are cared for on the school breaks by our long-term friend named Ida, who lives in Kajabi. And she seems to be a magnet for lost and hurting children, and she's opened her home to these girls in an amazing way. So 2 of the girls are stepsisters, and they have a physically abusive alcoholic father. One of the girls has 4 sisters, and the 5 of them were being raised by a single mom who has no steady income. And this particular girl, when she was young, was made to dance naked for the tourists in Mombasa. She's now 13. Then there's a 4th young girl who we also believe is about 13. None of them quite know their birth dates or ages, but she was given to a family 5 hours from her home to work in their home and to serve as a servant. So the place where her parents sent her is very close to Kajabi. So a motorcycle taxi driver, we have taxis, lots of them in Kenya called bodabodas, and they are motorcycles. But one day a driver had noticed this girl, Florida. He had noticed her over time, and he contacted Ida because Florida looked so miserable and desperate, and he knew that Ida was a good woman, and he just begged her to do something to help Florida. And so with a friend of ours who's Kenyan and serves in Nairobi with SIM, we took advantage of her expertise working with street kids, and she helped us navigate Florida's situation. So we were able to contact her parents and gain permission for her to live with Ida and to go to Camp Brethren for school. So her parents live, like I said, about 5 or 6 hours from Kajabi. So we've never met them. We've only talked to them on the phone. And none of our girls were able, none of the 4 of them were able to go home for Christmas because the families don't have money for the trip. And Beatrice, who's our expertise in, children at risk, she advised us not to send them home unless the families made the arrangements. But Ida is amazing, and she managed to get one of the 3 moms to travel to Kajabi to see her daughter in Sherri over Christmas. The oldest of the girls, Mary, 3 of our girls are actually Marys, but we call 2 of them by their second names just so that we can not be confused all the time. But the oldest of the girls and the oldest of the Marys ran away from Ida's house on a school break last summer and was raped. She's still recovering from this really pretty dark time in her life. She's 17 now, but we had to move her to a different school from Camp Brethren because of her behavior at the school and then also in Ida's home. Beatrice, again, has helped us with keeping the court case moving forward. That's something we could not do as Westerners, but she's kept the court case for the rape moving ahead, and she's recommended this other school for Mary. In November, when I visited Mary, she seems to be thriving in the new school setting, and we just pray that she'll continue to heal and to grow in her relationship and understanding of Christ. The trauma competent care course that I took part of it last summer, and I'm taking the rest of it right now, but that has really helped me understand trauma and to be able to help these girls in their healing process. The girls have been at our house many, many times while they, live with Ida on the breaks and go to school at Camp Brethren. And in the beginning of the pandemic, when schools were closed for months and months, most of 2020, the schools were closed, they helped me sew face masks and gowns for the hospital. The hospital was desperate for these items. They weren't available in the country for the amount that was being, asked for in the first year of the pandemic. And so the girls really loved learning to sew on the sewing machines and made lots of friends in the Kajabi community. with kids and missionaries. And there's still women from Kajabi who ask me about the girls and pray for them regularly. But what I love most about this part of our recent journey with the Lord overseas is that Beatrice and Mary and her husband Steve and Ida are totally in this together with us, and none of us could care for these girls without the others. And so 4 years ago, we picked up Mary, the oldest one, on the side of the road after she had run away from her stepfather, who had beaten her pretty badly. She had spent 2 nights in the forest, and she was on her way to Nairobi to find her mom. But Nairobi is 4 million people, and Mary didn't have a cell phone, and she didn't have an address for her mom. And in fact, her mom wasn't even in Nairobi. Her mom, turned out, was in Nakuru, which is about 2 hours north of Kajabi, 3 hours north of Nairobi. We thought she was older. We thought she was a young woman because she's very tall. But as she got into the car and we could see the bruises on her, we discovered that she was only 14. But we were already 30 minutes into our journey towards Nairobi. So Beatrice, our friend who works with children at risk, was involved from that very first day to help us in Nairobi with what to do to care for Mary in that immediate situation. And then Ida came later that day and took Mary back to Kajabi to her house to spend the night and for the next week. But what started out as offering a ride to a young woman on the side of the road has blossomed into our journey with these 4 girls. We are so glad to be with you here this morning and be able to share some of our stories from the past few years. So we just want to thank you for being on this journey. You've been so faithful with us and so kind over all these years. And we probably have like maybe 2 minutes, maybe could take one question.
Stephen, maybe we'll just take questions. Should we do one question? Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
So I think we have a minute or two. If any of you have questions or a question that you'd like to ask us, we'd be happy to take a minute and answer any question that you have. So, yeah. Oh, okay. You go.
Well, this will probably be for both of us. A couple of our kids have grown-up issues they are going through, and I think even this morning, if you can pray for our oldest daughter and some family stuff. We had a phone call as we were coming in that you're all parents, and so you know what those issues can be. So yeah, we would appreciate that.
I would just share, I've struggled with migraines for the last, since we went to Africa, and they've been better recently, but I think right now I have this, we have several missions conferences in February, and next Monday I go back to Kenya for a week for this Board of Governors meeting. And so I just ask for prayer for just strength for my body. I'm pretty tired. We packed up our house right before we left Kenya, and we're moving houses, but we had to put all our things into storage. So we completely closed up our house and packed it. And so we're just tired. So I would just ask for prayer for strength for the next, especially the next couple weeks as we travel and speak and
maybe I'll just put the one ministry one, because Alan asked why are we going to be in and out of the U.S. for so long, and I said, we need to significantly bump the resources for Banda. So that's going to be a lot of what we're here for. So just prayers. That's not the space I enjoy being in, and chasing that. So, but the opportunities are big. So, yeah. Thank you all.
Oh, I would just add, we've put some prayer cards on the, right out in the hallway on the ledge with your missionary thing. So if you want to pick up a prayer card or a flyer about Banda or sign up for our newsletter, there's a piece of paper there to do that as well.
Team, thanks.
Prayer requests, anything they need help with. Just going to kind of spend a couple of minutes bring us back